So it's time for another gardening week, and I'm in the polytunnel and it's all planted up. It's a really nice position to be in. I always look forward to getting everything planted for winter, and I just wanted to show you just a few issues that I've got. I'll do a dedicated video all about the planting plan in the polytunnel and all that sort of thing. But the main issue is with one batch of the lettuces, which really suffered as a result of the sort of hot weather and the dull conditions. So it was too warm and not bright enough, and as a result we got a lot of weak leafy growth on these lettuces. I think they'll pull through. It's happened many times to me before. This is just one of the risks that you take in September. Growing conditions are rarely ideal, but this is one of the areas where grow lights would have been better to use, just to up the light levels and keep the heat low. Got a similar sort of issue behind me here with this miner's lettuce, where it's starting to go to seed already because it's been too warm for it. I'm not so worried because it's only my bonus sowing, I guess you might know. It's my bonus planting of miner's lettuce. Just had a few spare plants, so I will get a bit of a harvest off it, and I will cut it back and see if it regrows without continuing to go to seed, but that might not happen, in which case I'll just compost the plants and replant those containers with something else. But anyway, that's basically the issues that we've got in the polytunnel. So it's not too bad, everything's growing pretty well. I'm pretty pleased with it all. So this is literally the end of summer for me, the very last of my summer crops, and it's one of the pepper beds. I've just harvested them, got a nice crop of green ones which we gave away, and a reasonable number of ripe ones. Not quite sure what we'll even do with the ripening ones because the freezer is absolutely crammed full, and we've got loads and loads from the previous bed that I harvested last week. But anyway, it's the end of summer, and I'm looking forward to getting this bed completely removed, because I'm in the process of, over the next few years, taking all of these beds out here and creating container and sort of leisure space as I kind of continue on my strategy to reduce the number of beds that we've got under cultivation and move to more perennial plantings, and just generally take life a bit easier as I get older. And this bed was also a pepper bed, and that is now replaced with spinach, and it's all looking pretty good. So this is the last batch of my spinach that will be harvested in winter, and now I'm on to spinaches for spring, which will gradually sort of replace some of these other beds as they get harvested over the next month or so. It's really lovely and sunny actually, so there's no need to have that cover on. And I've also just cleared this asparagus bed. I tend to clear my asparagus beds a little bit earlier than other people, just because I don't like it shading this purple sprouting broccoli, and I also want to get my overwintered onions planted into this bed. This year I'm going to move one of my cold frame tops over the top of this bed so I can put a bit of a thicker mulch of compost on this bed, because I'm kind of getting to the point now where it's quite a bit higher than the raised bed that it's in, and it's going to make it a bit of a struggle to mulch this and get the onions in if I don't raise it up a touch. And of course I've got that spare bed anyway because I'm taking it out. And I took the cover off the pepper bed and I put it here. Let's just have a look in this bed. So this bed was my summer carrot bed, and it did so well. It was such great weather for carrots that we've only just cleared the last few of the carrots that were over here, and gave us a really nice crop, gave loads of them away. I've just got a few in the fridge for this week, and then we'll be on to our autumn carrot bed a bit late, so I'll have to go through that pretty quickly. And then the winter carrot bed is just behind you there, and that is looking really good. I've done a few test harvests from there. Anyway, once I took the carrots out, I put those what are they, Brighton lettuces in, which I'm growing for heads in winter, and I've just got these few scrappy Asian greens, and they're scrappy because they've been eaten by caterpillars whilst they were under that carrot net. I couldn't really see what was going on, and now that I can see what is going on, yeah, there's been quite a bit of damage to them, and they're those little green looper sort of caterpillars. But yeah, I've taken all the affected leaves off, and hopefully we've got some really lovely sunny weather coming. Hopefully they'll be able to recover over the next week or so. And then just for completeness, this is the last of my pepper beds, and again I've got lettuces in here looking a bit floppy actually. I think they need a bit of a water, but they're not too bad. So yeah, I've been planting a lot this last week. I'll just show you that actually making sure that I can keep these open for harvesting and things like that, and also just to enjoy the sunshine, can sometimes be a bit tricky. So in this case I just reversed the chock that I use to hold this cover open so that this one can lean on it. And then I harvested the early parsnips, just the last few, and just popped all of these different beet leaf greens in here. Mixture of chard and beetroots, all different sorts of varieties. So yeah, looking forward to trying these out. And I've got my salad rocket there doing pretty well. So I've just got to dismantle this coal frame. Need to get the soil away from the sides so it doesn't all spill over onto the path. It's at times like this that I'm really pleased that I used stainless steel screws. Right, so that's all in. So just need to get the barrow and barrow a whole load of compost in here, and this should last me, well, I think it'll last actually until the end of the life of this bed. So this asparagus is 8 years old. I'm hoping it'll last me until it's about 14 years old, and then this bed will come out along with these others. So I've just given this a handful of bloodfish and bone for the onions, and this bed is basically just, you know, what I've done is effectively mulch it with 3 inches of compost. So hopefully that will be great for the asparagus as well later on when it comes and grows through those onions and just pushes the onions out of the way. The onions seem to not mind at all, and the asparagus doesn't mind, of course. So I like this timing because both crops finish their harvest period at the same time. So towards the end of June we stop harvesting the asparagus and let it grow on, and we harvest all of the overwintered onions at the same time. So I'm just going to tamp this down now with a rake and get those onions planted. I've got 2 batches of the tough ball overwintering onions here, separated by, I don't know, a couple of weeks, something like that. It's just a hedge against them getting too big by spring and going to seed. I don't think there's much chance of that now looking at these, but you know, you never know. If you get like a really nice mild sunny winter, sometimes it can happen. We're not growing quite as many overwintered onions as we did last year because we had an incredible harvest, actually hundreds of onions, and we mainly eat red onions, you know, because they're healthier and sweeter. But you know, occasionally we'll have yellow onions as well, and they also just fill that gap nicely between the stored onions finishing and the main crops being ready. But that's why I use this bed for them, because they're a low value crop for me, and you know, so I don't want to give them any high value sort of dedicated growing space. I would rather just take the risk on them being interplanted like this, but you know, it pretty much always works. So that, I think, is enough, and I'm just going to put some salad onions around the edge. This is mainly where the asparagus comes up, on this edge here, so they'll be harvested just as the asparagus are kind of breaking surface. It actually turned out that got a few more salad onions than I realised, so I'm just going to plant some around the edges as well. All these salad onions are purple varieties, so they contrast nicely with the yellow tough balls, so I won't get them confused even if I forget which ones I planted where, which I often do, unfortunately. So I'm pleased with that, and Lilia will bulb as well, so if by chance I have too many salad onions and so I leave them in the ground, these without harvesting them in early spring, then by early summer we should have some reasonable bulbs on these Lilia, and so at the same time as we're kind of harvesting these tough ball, we could probably harvest the Lilia, although there is a risk, a much bigger risk, that they will go to seed in spring, but since we'll be eating them fresh anyway, that doesn't really matter. So yeah, now if I need to, and we did happen to have some really foul weather, then I could obviously put a fleece over here to give them a little bit of protection for a while, but I don't think I'll need to do that. I don't normally need to do it here. Even when it was down to -10, I didn't need to do it. I think it's only when the combination of really cold and really windy that I would consider fleece here. So now I'm filling these carrot containers, and I don't bother with my carrot containers sieving the compost or anything like that. Carrots seem to grow pretty well in this soil regardless, but I'm just going to give them a bit of bloodfish and bone, and I've got some down here with me. I only need 4 of these containers because I keep my carrots in the ground until about May, and so this is just the number of containers that I need to last me until kind of the end of June or the middle of June, when my carrots will be ready. March sown carrots will be ready. So just work that in a bit. The only danger of doing this with this soil here is I might get a lot of weeds in it, so I might mulch the very top layer with something sterile from the garden centre. So the bed is gone, and I've kind of levelled it a little bit. I've put this little retaining wall in here, and now I need to cover all this with wood chip. This is my new little seating area and workspace. Never had a workspace on the plot before where I can actually lay stuff out, you know, like raised beds and cold frame tops and low tunnels and all of that sort of thing. So this is the first stage in sort of transforming my plot into more of a leisure garden, I suppose you could say. More perennial planting, more space for sitting out with family for meals and things like that. Partly just because I'm getting older, partly because I fancy a change, partly because the council said, "Oh, Steve, you grow too much food." So yeah, I think lots of little factors sort of combining to drive me to really just feed immediate family, sort of 8 to 10 people, and take it easy, because we've got so many other hobbies, and you know, gardening is a very important one of them, but it's not the only one. Well, I'm quite pleased with that. That's a good afternoon's work. Got somewhere to sit now, in addition to my polytunnel, which can get a little bit hot. I'm going to put a tree here, a pear tree, and or maybe here, and I'll put the chair there. I haven't decided yet. Yeah, it's going to be really nice. So now I've got all my planting finished, really. So I'm just going through the beds, filling in gaps with spares. This bed had a second succession of radicchio in it. Radicchio isn't top on my list of things to grow, and I've got this big bed here anyway. So I've decided to take it out because it didn't look like it was going to mature in time. So I'm putting some of my spare lettuces in here, and I've also put some of my spare lettuces into hanging baskets, which are going to go in the greenhouse when that's ready in November. So they'll stay in the polytunnel until then. And I started, because we had a frost last night, I started to move everything that's in containers into the polytunnel now. So the parsley, which I cut back to about 1 inch of growth, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, and it's starting to grow back nicely now. And I've got 2 nice big pots of celery, which should make it through winter. And oh yeah, I've sort of started potting a few things on. So I potted on the wild rocket, which is a big favourite of mine, so I like to get it as early as possible in the year, in spring. So I started that back in August probably. So yeah, it's a nice relaxed time gardening now, you know, now that all the priorities are basically taken care of, and just pottering around, taking advantage of opportunities to replant as they arise. I'll just show you a couple of others actually. So in that bed there, I've got early autumn spinach. It won't last much longer, I don't think, and I'll be replanting spinach for spring in there. And then down there in that bed there, I've got lettuces really for early autumn that I've just managed to sort of hold on, but they're not looking great now. There's a few pak choi and tatsoi and things like that in that bed as well, and that'll get cleared again for spinach for spring. So that'll bring to the end most of my replanting, to be honest, for this year, and still just a little bit to do in the garden at home. So I've got all these trays of bits and pieces, you know, and I just hate to see things going to waste, really. So I'm just going to try them out. This is a bonus bed. I wouldn't normally have this one, but because I've put a cold frame top over it this year, I can get to use it. I could have used it before, and I probably did actually, for a spring harvest, but the trouble with the spring harvest for me is I always have so much stuff in spring, you know, we're always totally overwhelmed. So trying to grow more for spring really just doesn't make any sense for me. What I really need to do is to grow more for winter. So the cold frame top makes a huge difference because it means that plants that otherwise wouldn't mature until spring actually get to mature quite happily and to actually grow quite happily and to give us a nice harvest all through winter. And some of these are a bit rough. A lot of these I'd pretty much almost given up on them, but I thought, well, I'll just give them a go, put them outside, see which ones survive, and probably 20% of them survived, to even thrived, and the rest just died. It's always a good test, really. So just put those few red pak choi in, and I've got all these different spare lettuces, absolutely loads. I don't know what any of them are now because I've used the labels for the primary plantings, and I'm just taking off all of the damaged leaves just to leave them as kind of young, as healthy as I can, not tempting to slugs. Damaged leaves are always tempting to slugs. And actually, talking of pests, Debbie and I arrived on the plot today and we found absolutely loads of caterpillars had suddenly appeared on the purple sprouting broccoli. Loads. From nowhere. I don't know where. I do try and keep an eye on stuff. It's just one of those things, you often just don't see something until your sort of eye is attracted to it for whatever reason. You see a bit of movement or something like that, and then as soon as you've seen one, you see loads. So we've just picked all those off, and I'll have to keep an eye on them now. It's a little bit late for caterpillars, but it's obviously not too late, and they certainly weren't bothered by the frost. They were pretty active this morning. It wasn't a particularly hard frost, but it was hard enough to kill the yacon. And the yacon is my real kind of so frost sensitive. It's crazy, just the slightest touch of frost and it dies back in such a dramatic way. It's really quite impressive actually to see how it goes from just like vibrant and healthy to dead in a night. Polytunnel's starting to come alive again a bit now. Now I've got some of these big plants in. I'll have the broad beans down here soon, climbing really high. And I've just brought the little brassicas in from the mini greenhouse because I just find it a lot easier to look after them in here because I'm in here so much more. I just forget about them in the greenhouse. And so we're back harvesting again. There's a lot to consider when you're harvesting at this time of year, because there's a lot of food to harvest, but if you take too much food, then there's not enough leaf area on the plants that remain in order for them to sort of grow to maturity by the end of November. And if they're not kind of mature by the end of November, then there's not enough leaf for you to eat through winter, so it's a bit tricky, takes a bit of practice. Probably show you an actual harvest in progress if I can get around to it sometime this month, just so you can get a feel for how much to take and how much to leave. Let's start in this corner. So we've got the potatoes from the store, onions and shallots from the store, salad onions. Actually, these salad onions I grew underneath my colettes, and what a beautiful little harvest from just a few plants. And I wasn't even sure they'd grow under the colettes, because there's not a lot of light down there, but they certainly managed it. And little parsnips, so I wasn't even sure I was going to get parsnips from the sort of shady area in the kitchen garden where I grew them, but I got something, a little bit of damage there on them, but not too bad, better than the ones on the allotment. But anyway, this is, I don't know, I've got about 100 parsnips, but this is the last parsnips that I'm growing. I'm not going to grow them next year. Beetroot, these are the baby beetroot from the kitchen garden. These aren't a storage crop, these are just the crop we're eating now, fresh from the ground. These are the storage crop. First pick of the Jerusalem artichokes, and they're looking really nice. So yeah, really nice size and very clean, and sort of white at this time of year. Sort of get, you know, quality degrades a little bit the longer you leave them in the ground, but we'll still be picking those sort of in February. And the yacon. Now, all of my yacon tubers that I overwintered, I thought had died because, you know, with that minus 10 degrees in the shed, and it basically got down to about minus 10 degrees in the shed, and pretty much they looked as if they were completely gone. But we planted them out anyway, and we have got little tiny yacons. So, and we've got new stock plants to overwinter. And this year, we've got somewhere that we can keep them pretty much frost-free, and so hopefully we will not have the same problem, and we'll have a nice bountiful harvest of yacon next year. But so I think we've probably got about 5 or 6 harvests like this, and they're still really lovely to have. And carrots, so these are the autumn carrots. Most of them I think are pretty good. There's a few little problems, a few little like marks on them and things like that. It's probably slugs. I don't think it's carrot fly because I've tried to protect them pretty well. And then we've got the red stemmed celery there. You probably can see the red stem there. And leeks, got a lot of leeks. These are the last of the pears, or nearly last of the pears. And they were getting a bit ripe, so we decided we'd just dehydrate them. And they are absolutely gorgeous, dehydrated. Yeah, we're a big fan of those. And then we've got brassicas, mixed up brassicas, a lot of collet leaves, a lot of kale leaves at this time of year. So yeah, they're looking pretty good. And we're only taking these young leaves off the collets rather than sort of old mature ones, which are not that great. And actual collets, little collets, looking quite nice. And just a few sprouts. So I'm almost at the point now where I've taken all the grotty sprouts off my plants, and all the ones that are left are looking really good, and I just want to leave them basically as long as I can, because I really want them for winter. And then I've got mixed Asian greens, I've got some more of those as well, and then all of these are spinach and mixed Asian greens, and absolutely gorgeous Claytonia. And then what have we got? Oh yeah, so these are some of the tomatoes that we've ripened off, that we harvested back probably 3 weeks ago, I guess. So they're still ripening, and chilies outside still ripening. There's got loads of those. We don't really use many chilies now at this time of year because we've pretty much made all the chili jams and things and ketchups and stuff that we want with them. So yeah, we just give them away at this point. Little red cabbages, we're still picking the little ones. A little bit of slug damage and stuff on these. Saving all the big ones for winter. And yeah, so I've just got to make up the salad mixes now. And I'm going to add tatsoi to them, and spinach to them, and claytonia, and tomatoes, and carrots, and salad onions. So they will look like this. So I'm pretty pleased with this harvest. It's another nice table full. Pretty impressed with my estimating ability at this point. Pretty much filling this table perfectly every week of the year. Fingers crossed I can keep it up. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.